Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Hey, poddies, how did this happen? It is December 2019. Can I just say, where did this year go? When I was a kid, I don't know whether anyone else used to think this, but I was a child and the year used to go so slowly. It was kind of defined by school holidays and, hoping that you would have a snow day or that the pipes would break at school so you never had to go in. And as an adult, I wake up every single month of the year and go, how are we here? How did this happen? Where is my life going? Still wondering when I will find that sense of purpose that people keep talking about. At 30, it hasn't happened yet. I'm really worried about that. Just as a side note, does anyone else worry about this? Where sometimes you think, oh my God, what if I don't ever have a big purpose? And then I think I've got lots of little purposes. I have purpose I, is that a thing? And I'm quite happy about fulfilling the smaller purposes. And then eventually, maybe I'll just get to the end of my life like Mother Teresa and be like, actually, I did some good stuff. I'm all good. Maybe that will happen. Little philosophical there to start the Monday, to start our December musings. I'm really excited, actually, as we head into December. There are lots and lots of good things happening in December. It's a good time of year to do some reevaluation. And it's also a good time of year to think about what is working and what is not working. And it's actually really interesting. I keep seeing this quote come up on Facebook when I'm scrolling the newsfeed, generally late at night, but I keep seeing this quote and everyone's sharing it at the moment. And I don't know who said it, but it's always on memes. And it says, my goal for 2020 is to apply each and every lesson that 2019 taught me. And I think that's really interesting. I think it's interesting for a few reasons. One is that generally I get to the end of every year and I'm not that jazzed about saying goodbye to the year. Some people are like, oh my God, I can't wait to see the back of 2018, for example. And I've never really been like that, except for 2019. 2019, as far as I'm concerned, they can, lock up the key, throw it away and put it in a river. It's just been a really interesting year in that it's gone incredibly quickly. Sometimes I wake up and I think it's still June. And also this year has been incredibly hard for people. And I'm going to include myself in that. This year has been challenging on a personal level. On a business level, it's been great. And I've been like, woohoo, this is awesome. I've done some direction changing. I've shut some things down. I've started some things up. Money is good. But on a personal level, seriously, 2019, you have kicked me in the ovaries, repeatedly. So I'm kind of excited to be here at the end of the year. And when I'm seeing this quote around the internet, I kept thinking, well, what can I learn from 2019? And I wrote down this big list of lessons that I felt I had been taught both in life and in business. If you want the full breakdown of the life lessons, by the way, email me one time and just be like, Jess, what was your biggest life lesson that you've learned this year? I'll answer it probably over a glass of wine and pick one from my random list. But I did go through and I made this list of things that really solidified a lesson for me in 2019. And then I started thinking about the lessons that I wish people would take into 2020. And that's where the inspiration for this episode came from. Because there are lots and lots of things that I've heard people say this year that I really wish they would not take into 2020 and beyond, because I think that they're holding them back. I think that they are stopping them making the money that they want. And actually, I just think they're things that are not even necessarily negative, but that are really stopping people's growth and, just holding them back from achieving the things that they want to achieve. So I was going to do some kind of comedy skit today, and then I realized A, I'm not that funny, and B, I can't do that many accents. So I was like, oh my goodness, I could do this as some kind of comedy skit with accents. And I was getting quite into it. And then I realized I have 2 accents, and I don't know that it's even politically appropriate anymore to kind of do it and joke about it. So avoiding all of the hot topic issues here on the podcast, as you can see, for the remainder of 2019. But Anyway, I wanted to talk about some of the beliefs and some of the phrases that I'm hearing, or I have heard a lot in 2019, and what I want you to take into 2020 so that you can actually start making decent money, so that you can be, really proud of your business, and also so that you can become more resilient as business owners. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen this year is that it has been a hard year. It's been really hard. And there have been times this year where I've watched a lot of my amazing community and clients and myself, things have happened and I've just been like, oh my God. Some days you just don't want to get back up, right? But the common theme with the people that I see who are really successful is that they are resilient. They really embrace that quality in themselves, and they do the doing, right? So even when life is hard, even when life is really testing them, they get up and they're like, right, okay, how am I going to deal with this? They're problem solvers. And I think that's such a valuable skill to have. And it's going to be even more valuable in 2020 because we are in this weird state of flux in the world. And we are in this strange state as an online industry, and nobody really knows where it's going or what's going to happen. And so I think, that resilience is something I want everybody to embrace for next year. Being resilient will help you make more money, and it will actually make your life as a business owner much easier. I think people who are resilient generally make quicker decisions, take action quicker, and actually that makes life a lot easier than thinking all of the time about all of the possibilities that could ever happen and ending up not taking action and feeling really frustrated because you're not moving forward, right? So resilience is a key thing. Now, I promised I was going to talk about phrases, and these are just some of the phrases that I've heard this year, and I'm not judging anyone. So if you've said these to yourself, do not worry, but just going to give you a little reframe to help you make more money next year. And I will also point out some of the ones that I have said before. So do not think that I'm completely innocent in this. All right. So the first one that I've heard this year a lot is, I really want insert specific outcome here, but I don't want to do XYZ activity to get there. Now, look, I'm not saying everyone needs to kind of go on a Gary Vee-esque binge and work 80 hours a week and never see their children and all this kind of thing. I'm not saying this at all. But I've heard it a lot this year with regards to revenue. I want to make £10,000 a month, but I don't want to sell high ticket services, and I do not have a large audience, and I am not willing to grow it. Okay. Pigs may fly eventually. Miracles may indeed happen. But I want people to give themselves the best possible chance to be successful. And sometimes we have to accept that we can't get the results until we do the work. Now, I actually don't think that this is necessarily a failing on the people who are saying this, right? Because I think it looks a lot easier to be successful than it is now. When I came into the online space, I remember seeing people and they were like, yeah, within 3 months I'd made all this money, and within 6 months I'd made 6 figures, and it was all so easy, and I did it lying on a beach, and da 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 da. And you never saw like the actual work that had to happen before they achieved those things. So it felt like, they just woke up one day and they had this idea for a business, and then overnight they just made money. And when I started my business, I actually felt kind of cheated. I was like, hang on a minute. I've been, looking at these blogs and listening to these people talk on videos and podcasts and things, and they're all telling me that this is so easy. And I felt cheated because it wasn't. And I also felt like I was failing because I wasn't able to achieve those things. And I would think to myself, well, I want that outcome. But I wasn't seeing what they were having to do behind the scenes to actually achieve it. And that's one of the things that this year I've really tried to be open with my audience about is, what does it actually take? What does it actually look like? And there's a lot of, not necessarily, having to work really long hours or having to stretch your boundaries to accommodate other people, but there's a lot of grind involved in running a business. There's a lot of decisions that you have to make. And when you run your own business, you get decision fatigue because you don't just have to make decisions about running the business. You have to make decisions about like basic life things. What am I going to eat for dinner today? What am I going to get so-and-so for a Christmas present? You know, it's hard work. It requires consistent time investment, consistent energy investment, consistent development of your own expertise, and money. You know, let's just address the money, the money in the room, the elephant in the room, right? Running a business, it's not reasonable to assume anymore that the marketing is correct and that you will wake up on day 1 and on day 30 you will have made tons and tons of money. It's not impossible, but it's not very likely unless you are some kind of business whiz kid genius that knows exactly what you're doing from day 1 and actually does it. There's a very different level between knowing the theory of something and actually being able to do the work. Incidentally, this is one of the biggest problems I have with the online industry. There are lots of people who, know the theory of things and are teaching them, but have no idea how to troubleshoot them or actually, help other people get results doing them. So it's a side note. If you've been telling yourself in 2019, I want a specific result, but I'm not willing to do this, this, or this, I just want you to think about it. And think about, do I really want the result? And am I prepared to do what I need to do in order to get that result? Now, if the thing that you need to do is like sell a kidney or get rid of your child or, I don't know, run over a dog, don't do it. Those are bad things. If, however, it's a case of, do I need to get up half an hour earlier each day to kind of spend more time doing my own personal admin so that when it gets to tax time, I'm not completely overwhelmed and freaking out that I've lost all my receipts? Or if it's a case of actually, in order to sign another client a week, I need to be doing X amount more discovery calls. So I need to open up my calendar and stop going and having a coffee every single day and just go, 2 or 3 times a week. Compromise. We have to do the foundational work to get the result that we want. So rather than thinking I have to do these things and it's so unfair, start thinking about what can I choose to do that's going to help me get the result that I want in the quickest and easiest way. Be lazy about it. The second thing I've heard this year is I don't have time. But Jess, I don't have time to do that. It's always interesting for me because, and it's quite frustrating actually, I'll be really honest with you potties, because I always am. The thing that really frustrates me is that often the people who tell me they don't have time are the people who are not making the money they want to make and they don't have any clients. So they're like, but I don't have time, Jess, to fit in a sales activity, but I've got time to write 15 blogs, post on Instagram all day, go live on Facebook a couple of times and, make a homemade cake from scratch. Everyone has the same 24 hours. I know how cliche that is. I really do. Believe me, as I'm saying it, I'm kind of like vomiting in my mouth a little bit, but it's true. Everyone has the same 24 hours, but everyone has different priorities. Don't make the mistake of thinking that the busy work is the work that's going to get you paid. And don't focus most of your time there. When we say I don't have time, what we're saying is I'm not choosing that activity as a priority right now. That's something I've learned in 2019. And actually it was something that I learned in my personal life back in 2014 when I was diagnosed with ME. When I was working and choosing not to prioritize my health, I would always say to people, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to go running. And it cost me a lot. I'm always very open about the fact that had I not been diagnosed, I probably would have worked in corporate forever. Am I glad that didn't happen? Of course. But I really liked my job. I really liked what I did. I, thrived in that environment. And whilst I'm incredibly glad about what I get to do now, and I've been really, really, I would say fortunate with my success, but actually I've worked really hard for it too. So a combination of those. I didn't prioritize my health for a long time. And that caught up with me. And I justified it by saying, I don't have the time. And what I really meant was, I'm not prioritizing that right now, or I don't want to. In 2020, rather than saying that you don't have the time, think about, again, what are my priorities this year? If my priorities are sales, I will make the time for a sales activity. And yes, it may come at the cost of something else. That doesn't have to be something you like, by the way. A lot of people say to me, oh, but, if I have to fit in a sales activity, then I won't get to spend time with my family. That's not true. Look at, honestly, at the work that you're doing each day, every week, and think about what's actually generating a decent ROI for you. You know, look at, are these activities generating leads? Are these activities generating money? Are these activities contributing to my own personal or professional development? And if they're not, actually, you don't need to prioritize them all the time. Yeah, family time is not something that should be compromised, you know, or as little as possible. I firmly believe that you have to have a good work-life balance. Nobody sets up a business that they can have another job. But I do believe that you have to really be honest about your priorities. And if you want to be successful, there are certain things you must do in your business. Sales is one of those things. Marketing is one of those things. If you don't do them, then it's tough. Like, and you won't get the results that you want. So sometimes you might have to compromise. And I say this tongue in cheek, but like, if you're spending 4 hours a day journaling, but no hours a day selling, you cannot ever expect to make the money that you want. So please think about your priorities next year, you know, and stop telling yourself you don't have time. Make time, you know. Be very clear that you get to choose your priorities. You get to choose the time that you fit them in, and you get to do whatever you want, which incidentally means that a lot of my time I spend, you know, at coffee shops drinking coffee. And I'm really excited, actually, as we go into December. The local coffee shop gets like gingerbread syrup, and I can have gingerbread lattes and little gingerbread people again. But I'm very clear that if I spend 3 hours of my day at a coffee shop, I'm probably going to have to catch up on something else later on, like emails or client work. It's a priority thing. Okay. Number 3, I only want to do, insert a sexy thing here. No, I do not mean an actual sexy thing. Like, just want to be very clear. Keep it at PG, people. But I see a lot of people who are like, I only want to do the sexy activities. I only want to do Facebook ads. You know, I only want to do webinars because webinars are really cool right now. I only want to do marketing. Someone said that to me 4 or 5 months ago. They're like, Jess, I never want to sell. Like, I only want to market. Like, that's the best form of selling, in my opinion. I was like, your opinion is wrong. I had nothing else to say on that. Like, but it's true. We all have the sexy activities we want to do in our business. For me, one of the things that I spend the most time on is creating content for clients. I love it. And it's a really, you know, I get the most enjoyment out of it. For me, it's a really sexy activity because everyone then gives me all of the validation I could possibly ever want and be like, oh my God, Jess, that was amazing. And I'm like, yay. I can't only do that. For my business to survive, I have to do other activities. So please don't get caught up in the sexy activities. Don't get caught up in, you know, oh, I'm going to go on Instagram Live today because, you know, it's just the cool thing to do. Or I'm going to be off on TikTok, or I'm going to do these things, but I'm not going to do, you know, a sales activity or a genuine lead generation activity or something. Do the foundational pieces that make it work. Yeah. Because everything you say yes to means you have to say no to something else. And what I found is that usually the things we say yes to are not always the things that bring us the best results. Sometimes they're just the things that we think, oh, we'll enjoy that more, or that'll be much more fun. And that's fine, right? It is fine. But it also doesn't necessarily lend itself for you making the money that you want to make next year. And I say this every year, but I get so tired of watching people who are genuinely qualified, who are genuinely good at what they do, get so frustrated because they're not actually getting the results that they want. You know, people who are qualified, people who deserve every success, but they're spending all their time on just, you know, these sexy things that aren't paying off. So really get down to grips and think about, okay, am I doing genuinely one sales activity a day, one branding and visibility activity every day, and one learning development activity every day? And if you are, then your business is going to be much more sustainable. It's going to make money. It's not going to be feast or famine. It's going to be easier. But it takes time to build that habit. You know, it takes consistency, you know, so you really, really have to reframe this, you know, from I only want to work on the sexy stuff to the sexiest thing about my business is when it's profitable and I'm helping a ton of people. So I'm going to do the maybe mundane and boring activities that it requires to keep it alive. Yeah. What are we on now? Number 4? Yeah, number 4. this is a controversial one, okay? But this year I've heard a lot. But I know people have this problem, so they should buy my product, service, insert whatever here. It's so tough. I don't even know sometimes the best way to explain this, but the analogy that I have created over the last year, because I've heard this so often, is when people tell us to do something, when people tell us, you know, when they don't really know us that well, that we have a problem and that we should do something about it, it's almost like we become more contrary. You know, even if we actually want that outcome, we're just like, nope, don't want it, not interested. So for example, every time I go anywhere and people say to me, they're like, oh, you're in your 30s now. Oh, you should have children. You really should, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on so much. Who's going to look out for you when you're older? Like, you will miss out on having somebody love you unconditionally, etc., etc. I mean, I don't want children anyway, but I almost get like a joy in turning around and being like, nope, not in a million years. Whereas previously, when, you know, when people are polite about it and they're like, oh, you know, are you thinking about children or things like that? I'll put it politely that I don't think it's my thing. And I'll be relatively open-minded about all the cool stuff that kids provide. But when somebody tells me you must do something or you definitely have this issue, I'm just like, no, I don't, even if I do. Because as humans, we get defensive. Right? It's a natural thing. It's not that we're even trying to be contrary some of the time. It's a natural response to being told that you are wrong. When you're told that you are wrong, you want to overcome it and be right. So you're automatically less disposed to actually trying to see somebody else's perspective. So next year, instead of thinking, or instead of saying to people, you definitely have this issue, so you should do this, ask them better questions so that they can realize for themselves that they have that issue. And they can say to you, oh my goodness, this is the problem that you solve. How can I get help by you? How can I work with you to achieve it? Yeah. It's a simple one, but it really works. Psychologically, people do not like being told, you have a problem, you must fix it this way. So just start asking better questions. You know, start helping people realize for themselves the issues that they have rather than telling. Show, don't tell, that kind of thing. And then finally, and this is my favorite one that I've heard this year that always makes me laugh. Well, Jess, it's easy for you because, yep, that's right. I was born under some kind of sunshiny golden star, which means I never have problems. I have the golden touch on everything. Life is super easy for me. My business just, you know, set up one day and it took off, and whew, you know, I did it drinking pina coladas and everything was smooth. Sadly not. I really wish I had. It would have probably been more interesting in some respects. It's never easy for anyone else. You know, people might find certain aspects of things simpler. You know, some people are really techie, which makes creating a landing page really easy for them. But those people who are really techie may not necessarily be the best writers. So they might really struggle to communicate on that landing page what the problem is and why people should opt in or buy their stuff. It's never easier for anyone. I know that we can think that, and like I was saying earlier when we were talking about, you know, getting the results without having to do the work, I know that sometimes the online world portrays it as all being easy and simple and go with the flow and blah, 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 blah. You know what? It's not easy for anybody. Everybody has new skills to learn. When I set up my business, I was really good at selling stuff. That's what I'd spent all of those years doing for other people. I'm terrible at people management. I really am honest about that. And I try so hard now. And even now, I'm still not very good at it. It's not because I don't want to be. It's just because it doesn't come naturally to me. I have to really work at it. I have to really spend time and effort and energy on trying to be a better manager and communicate, you know, in easier ways to understand. So think about your strengths and weaknesses. You know, your strengths, somebody else will be so jealous of you for. I'm always really jealous of people who people management comes naturally to. I'm like, oh my God, it must be must be so wonderful for you. Like your team must love it and everything must be so much simpler. But those people will also look at my business and go, oh my God, like it must be so great to be good at sales and find it like such a natural skill because you can just sell more stuff and gosh, life must be so much simpler. It's okay to have strengths and celebrate them, and it's okay to have weaknesses and, you know, work on them. But what is not okay is to say that the reason that you are not doing well is because it was easier for somebody else. It wasn't, you know, it I kind of think about it sometimes and I think, well, was it easier to set up an online business 5 years ago? And in some ways, yes. Like in some ways, when it comes to market saturation and things like that, it was simpler. Still had to get people to buy stuff, but there wasn't quite the saturation. You know what was harder? Not having things like ClickFunnels, not having half the tools that were here that make life and lead generation simpler and easier. I don't begrudge that. I didn't begrudge it at the time. I often used to think, oh God, it would be so cool if I could just not have to deal with my website. But I didn't look at other people and go, oh, well, it's easier for them because they're really good at building websites. It isn't. Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. So if you're not happy with where you are in your business, don't assume that it was easier for somebody else to do because insert reason here. Start looking at, am I actually leveraging my strengths or am I only focusing on my weaknesses? Am I always trying to develop something? Am I always trying to develop my web development skills, even though I could just as easily sell with just a PayPal link and not have to have a website at all, you know, and focus on my strength, which is building better relationships, right? Perhaps a weakness, one of my biggest weaknesses is I overthink everything. I overanalyze everything. I'm that person who can get really caught up in thinking about something to the infinite possibility. I often thought that life must be easier as somebody who just makes fast decisions. And then I realized that actually I wasn't playing to my strengths. I can make really good decisions, but I have to trust myself to do that. So I had to get over it. I had to ultimately say, I trust myself to make good decisions. And now I'm a quick decision maker. It doesn't mean I still don't overthink things. Doesn't mean I don't sit there at 3 a.m. and be like, ooh, should I have really written that phrase? Ooh, was that podcast episode completely politically correct? Of course I worry about those. I'm human. The difference is I don't let it stop me anymore. And that's the thing. So really start reframing. It's easier for them because, or it's easy for you because, and start thinking, am I actually playing to my strengths the majority of the time, or am I focusing on the tasks that make me feel weak or that I'm weaker at? And also start looking at telling yourself, I mean, and I tell a story a lot. When I started out in business and I wasn't doing so well and I was getting really frustrated, I remember saying to my mum, well, it's just not fair. And I remember her saying to me in a much less PG way than I'm going to say, because I don't want to get rated explicit again. She said, for months you've been telling me that all these people are able to do this. They're able to run an online business. They're able to make money. So what is so special about you that you can't? And it really made me think, you know, so often we think it must be easier for somebody else, but we should actually be looking at them and going, well, if that person can do it, why can't I? And be inspired and think, well, you know, they're just a normal human being too. They don't have magical powers. They're not superhuman or psychic or anything. And actually be inspired to use that to move forward and build our own thing. Same as if somebody's already making money in your industry. Be glad. If they're making money, it means money is there to be made. That's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to gain market share. It's not an opportunity to get upset and worry about it. Those are the key lessons that I've learned from 2019 and you know, from a couple of years before. But the biggest one I'd say is be positive, right? A lot of these are, I want this, but, or I don't, or I but, or whatever. And they all involve the word but at some point. But just means no. That's the way that I always think about it. When somebody says but in a sentence, they just mean no. They don't want to do that thing. There's a problem. In business, there are going to be lots of problems. In life, there are going to be lots of problems. It's your outlook on them that helps you get through. And if you want to make more money next year, think about the kind of people that other people want to spend time with and be surrounded by. It's positive people. I don't mean like fake positive or relentlessly positive when everything is falling around and they're like, oh no, it's all fine, everything's great. But the people who say, okay, I acknowledge there's a problem here. That's pretty sucky, but you know what? I'm going to do this, or I'm going to try that. And I'm just going to try and get through in the best way I can for me. That's positivity, you know, and it does massively, massively help. There you go. Those are my top tips, 2020 and beyond. Do some reframing. If you want to make a ton of money, you've got to do the work and stay positive. I don't know what 2020 holds for anybody. I wish that I did. But I can tell you that 2019 has not been the easiest year to navigate for anybody. And that I'm incredibly proud of everybody who just made it through in the way that works for them. And the people who do the work next year and who take action and who make bold decisions and who stay positive and stay collaborative, they're the ones who are going to make the money. The people who moan, the people who tell themselves that it's easier for somebody else, the people who get bitchy, like all that kind of stuff, they're going to fall by the wayside, because you cannot run a business in that way. So stay sunshiny, even though it's probably frosty and rainy outside, and really head into December with the intention of planning your very, very best 2020. Because after 2019, I feel like 2020 can only be a much better, much brighter, and much more successful revenue generation year. I'll see you in Friday's episode. Have a good one.